he is a little bit short and stocky. He's going to be, it's like he's built like Jason Peters or Deion Dawkins. Like he's played 30 games at right tackle, never done it on the left side, but I think his movement says he could do it.
Is top notch, and he joins us on the Yingling guest hotline on Waddle and Silvy. Matt, great to talk to you. As always, can you share with our audience what you tweeted out regarding the Bears at 10 if Genty isn't there and the other tight end in this draft?
Number one, they should go follow me. So, reading tweets on radio, come on. They should go follow me, NFL Draft Scout. But I did say today, I do like this scenario for the Bears to where if you're at 10 and there's no Ashton Genty, give me Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. I think Colston Loveland's the best tight end in the draft. They're both good players. This isn't a situation where I'm going to come on here and say Tyler Warren sucks. No, they're both really good players. Yeah. I think Colston Loveland is better, especially for Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson wants to run 12 personnel. That's one running back, two tight ends. Cole Kmet and Tyler Warren are the same guy. Give me some versatility. Give me the higher athletic upside with Colston Loveland. I think he's a better blocker because he's coming out of Michigan where they made him line up and do that. So if Genty's gone at 10, I think Loveland that's a player I would be excited about in that offense because he could be your Sam Laporta, which is a player who had a ton of success under Ben Johnson.
And you qualify that, Matt, by saying if Genty's gone at 10, do you believe it's a slam dunk they should absolutely take Genty at 10 if he's there?
I do. Yeah, I do because this draft is so light on blue chip talents. Genty is my number 3 overall player. So it's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. So if Genty's there, the value's there. I know positional value is a little bit out of whack, but they've filled so many needs through free agency, through trades, that I think you're in a spot where running back is a spot that they do need. And again, if we're imagining this offense is going to look like the one in Detroit did, what Genty could do out of the backfield as a receiver and as a runner, the contact balance that he has, the runaway speed, the toughness, I think that's an easy decision.
How much better, Matt, is he than, let's say, Hampton or the 2 running backs from Ohio State or the kid from Iowa? How much of a drop-off is there from Genty to those guys?
So I have Genty at 3 on my board. I have Marion Hampton from North Carolina at 19. The biggest thing is they're very different. Hampton is going to give you power. He has good deep speed. He's an inside runner. He is a good receiver out of the backfield, but he's much more upright. He's going to run standing straight up. It's a little bit more like Breece Hall with the body type and the way that he runs, but he's been productive. He had 30 touchdowns in the last 2 years. He had over 2,000 all-purpose yards last year, back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons. But he is, I think, more of somebody that you would probably want a combination, whereas Genty can do it all on his own. You mentioned the Ohio State guys, who I like. I like Judkins and Henderson a lot. But, again, they're guys who fit as a piece to the backfield puzzle. Henderson with DeAndre Swift could be a lot of fun because he's such a great receiver. He has that outside speed. He's a very good pass protector. Judkins, more of your inside power back. He has great short area burst. I think he's a little bit underrated as a receiver out of the backfield. We saw that in the college football playoffs, but there's 4 or 5 really good running backs this year.
Matt, do you believe that Henderson and Jahmyr Gibbs are a pretty good comp?
Yeah, they're similar. I think Jahmyr was a better inside runner. I think Henderson's more like James Cook, where he's going to be really good on the outside. I think his vision on the inside is inconsistent, as is his tempo. Like he's a little bit too patient to be a good inside runner. That's not to say it couldn't change, but that's where he's at right now.
So I hear this a lot, and I hear a lot of people, like you said, like best player available and BPA. Everyone just loves to shout that, like as the cool kids do. A BPA. Don't overthink it. BPA. But let me ask you if it's best players available. Like, can you think of it, Matt, as not only are you looking at the best player available at 10, but the combination of 10, 39, 41, where you get that tackle or the edge at 10, the running back at 39 or 41, and then the other line player there. And could that equal a higher best players available than simply just taking the running back at 10?
So I'm a big advocate for this. I don't think that we should look at drafts and just say, okay, at 10, they got to get this position because it's the biggest position of need. I think you have to look at your top 100 picks because those are your starter picks and have that conversation of, if we don't take a running back at 10, what will be there at 39, what will be there at 41, and even like what would be there at 72, right? Because again, those are starter level picks. You have to have that conversation. Same with tight end, if you view that as a need. Same with wide receiver. Same with left tackle or the players on the defensive line as well. This draft is very deep at running back, pretty deep at tight end. It's very deep at defensive tackle, especially if you want a nose tackle, and it's pretty deep at defensive end. Those are your deep positions. I don't think this is a deep offensive tackle draft. After the first round, there's not anyone where I would say, hey, you know what, at 39, this guy's going to be available. He could be a starter. Look at the offensive tackles in the NFL right now, especially on the left side. Almost all of them were first-round picks. Almost all the good ones. You could say, like, Deion Dawkins was a second-round pick. Jordan Mailata is an outlier, the way that they found him. That doesn't happen very often to find a seventh-rounder who's going to be able to move like that. More often than not, your left tackle is a high first-round pick. So this would not – if the Bears or Bears fans feel like, hey, one more year of Braxton Jones, then we're going to move on. We're gonna try to get that big left tackle, the premier player. 10 is usually where you draft those guys.
So what do you think at 10, if they would choose to go tackle? Is there a chance? This is a double and triple barreled question. A, would Campbell still be on the board? And if he's not, who would you go with? And then the third part of this, would you ever take a right tackle like Membo who could then move to left, or is he strictly a right in your mind? So 3 questions in one there.
Yeah. So I think Campbell's gone. I think he goes 4 or 7. He'll go to New England or the New York Jets. As far as Membo, I've talked to Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri. I've been to scrimmages, pro days, practices at Mizzou. I think he's athletic enough to make that move, but he's never done it. So it is a projection. You're looking at Trace and saying, yeah, I think he could do it. He is a little bit short and stocky. He's going to be, it's like he's built like Jason Peters or Deion Dawkins. Like he's played 30 games at right tackle, never done it on the left side. But I think his movement says he could do it. Now, I'll throw a curveball at you. I think Kelvin Banks is the best offensive lineman in the entire draft.
Wow.
And I think he's being horribly overthought. He's my number 8 player. I mean, just like galaxy brain overthinking this guy. He won the Outland last year. He won the Lombardi last year. He started for 3 years at left tackle, played against Big 12 teams for 2 years, but they played Michigan twice. Then you go to the SEC. All he does, those 3 years as a starter, he allowed 1 sack in each season. His pressure percentage allowed last year, lowest in college football. I don't understand where the idea came from that he's not good. He started 42 games in college. He gave up 3 sacks. And folks will say, oh, well, he's a little bit short. He's over 6'4". He has over 33-inch arms. And so the excuses that we make for, well, Will Campbell's got short arms, but man, he moves well. So does Kelvin Banks. He's a great athlete. So I don't get this idea that there's something on his tape that says he's not a high end. Like, maybe he won't ever be Trent Williams, but I think he's going to be a high-end starter at left tackle.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Matt, you mentioned that pass rusher is a pretty deep position in this draft. And after Carter, who is probably best suited to go at 10 if that's the route they go? There's a lot of guys with potential. Some of those guys don't have the production at the collegiate level that goes with that potential.
That's the hard part in this class especially. So I think Jalen Walker, the outside linebacker from Georgia, I think he'll be gone. I don't know that he's a great fit for this defense anyway, so that would be like a big conversation if he is on the board. But you nailed it. At 10, you are making an excuse for a player, basically, because none of the remaining defensive ends are graded that highly. You have Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, who is one of the freakiest athletes you'll ever see at defensive end. I mean, like Myles Garrett, freaky. But he had 1.5 sacks in each of the last 3 seasons. So if you're this great athlete, where's the production? It wasn't just a scheme thing because they had multiple schemes during those 3 years. It's the lack of production is scary for me. If you look at historically stats for pass rushers, tackles for loss, and sacks translate to the NFL. If you have them in college, you generally have them in the NFL. If you don't have them in college, pretty hard to find them in the NFL unless you're Danielle Hunter. He's kind of the outlier there. Mike Green from Marshall. Great production, a little bit undersized, and there's some off-field stuff with him. He disclosed at the combine. There's been 2 allegations of sexual assault. It's why he left the University of Virginia to go to Marshall. So your front office and your ownership group has to be really comfortable with that, obviously. Michael Williams from Georgia, another guy that looks the part, played banged up this year outside of the Texas games, didn't have great production. So you have to wonder, is he maxed out a little bit coming out of Georgia? Is that as good as it gets, but he's only 20 years old. He's played inside and outside. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent. So those three guys are the next defensive ends off the board. None of them would I be super comfortable with at 10.
Are there a couple of guys out there that you think are escaping the attention that they deserve that may be available at 39, 41, or even in the third round?
Yeah, there's a lot because all we talk about is Shedeur Sanders. We forget to talk about the other 258 players that are going to be drafted or whatever. So yeah, I absolutely think so. Especially on the defensive line. We don't talk about guys like Jordan Burch or Nick Scorton, who are going to be mid-second round players who are really good. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. The guy had 13 picks the last 2 years. No one's he hasn't had 5 minutes of airtime because so much is taken up with the couple of players at the top of the draft, right? So this is a meat and potatoes draft. This is a starters draft. It might not be the draft where you get all pros, but it is where you build your team. You can find starters rounds 2, 3, 4, and maybe even round 5 at positions like linebacker and safety. So this will be a spot where we look back in 3 years. It's like, man, we got 2 or 3 really good players out of that 2025 draft that everybody said wasn't a good draft class.
Matt Miller joining us from ESPN. We're talking Bears draft. Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. I asked this to Waddle, who played in the league the other day. We heard a lot from Ryan Poles that they wanted to collaborate with Luke Getsy, with Matt Eberflus, to get them guys who fit their system. And here we are 3 years later, now with a new defensive coordinator and a new head coach. And so a lot of guys who fit with them may not fit now with Dennis Allen or in Ben Johnson's offense. What is your philosophy, Matt, on how much say the coaching staff has versus the general manager and his scouting staff simply saying, this is a good player. I know, Dennis Allen, you like bigger defensive ends, but this guy is sure a little lighter, but he can sack the quarterback or anything like that. How much do you work with your coaching staff?
A little bit, but I think scouts are there to scout, right? And you want coaches. And one thing I love about Ben Johnson and why I was such a big advocate of his is because he does fit his scheme to his players instead of vice versa. So, even with Dennis Allen, there might be an idea of, okay, this is how we want to run our defense, but sometimes those players don't exist in the draft, number one. You can't always find, a 6'6", 270-pound defensive end who's going to go in the first round. Those are hard to find. So I think you have to work within the framework of that. I've heard horror stories of coaches getting involved in the draft process, players getting overdrafted, and then they get out on the field and they can't do anything, and the scouts say, yeah, we told you. We told you we shouldn't draft this guy in the second round or third round because he's not that good of a player. But that is the eternal struggle of how much do you cater to your coaches, especially in this current climate where those coaches might be there for a year or two. I would revert back to draft good players, stick true to your board, because there's going to be so much turnover, whether it be through injury, attrition, guys not living up to expectations, or just coach and player movement. So I think you do stick to that idea of stay true to our board within the realm of some of these needs that we have, best player at a position of need, and that's the way you build your team.
Matt, I apologize for my lack of memory, but going back to last year, A, where did you have Caleb ranked? And B, how do you believe he performed, compared to what you thought he would be as a rookie? And C, here comes a triple barrel question from this side of the table as well. How do you believe he will play differently with the new coach?
So here's what last year I had Caleb Williams number 1 overall. I had Rome Odunze as my top receiver last year. I love tough wide receivers though, so I had Rome up there as the top receiver. I thought Caleb had a rough year, and obviously as soon as he was drafted, we all talked about what a great landing spot Chicago was for him. We forgot to look at the Chicago coaching staff and say, wait a second, no one on this staff has ever developed a rookie quarterback. I think the difference is now you have a staff that has developed quarterbacks and has worked with different types of schemes and offenses. So I think he's going to be an ascending player. We knew coming out of that Lincoln Riley offense, there was going to be some adjustment. He's going to have to learn to play on time. He's going to have to learn to step up in the pocket instead of looking to get out of it all the time. But when you have that offensive line they had last year, it's easy to learn some bad habits. So I'm encouraged that with Tooney and Dahlman and Jackson, the interior, he's going to have those pockets to step up in, and we're going to see him and Rome get on the same page with some of the things they were doing in camp and in the preseason and early in the year that looked so exciting. I think we'll see them take off.
All right. So I hate to do this to you since you already, talked about what we over talk about. How many quarterbacks go before the Bears draft to 10?
One, I think Cam Ward goes first overall. I can't find a team that likes Shedeur Sanders. I really can't. And we're talking about it at the end of the interview here, so I promise I'm not just doing it so people will listen because we talked about Shedeur Sanders again. I can't find a team that says, yeah, that's our guy. And last year you could find teams that loved Jaden Daniels and loved Drake May and loved J.J. McCarthy and even that really liked Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. There was excitement around those quarterbacks last year. I haven't found it for Shedeur Sanders this year. Now, that doesn't mean that someone like the Giants can't draft him at 3 or the Saints can't at 10. But I think that will be an owner decision more than it is a GM or a head coach decision.
And it makes it more likely that Genty won't be there at 10 for the Bears because those quarterbacks are not going to creep up in this scenario.
Yep, exactly. I think you have to look at Jacksonville at 5, the Raiders at 6, and those teams have other needs. But if I'm a Bears fan that wants Ashton Genty, I'm holding my breath at pick 5. If you get past 6, then I think you can start to breathe a sigh of relief.
Matt, great stuff. We appreciate what you do and taking the time for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
You bet, guys. Thanks so much.
There you go, Matt Miller.